Good afternoon, all. I, Divyang Pandya, together with our CEO, Alf Lande, welcoming you all on behalf of entire Gateway Group, Gateway Digital, and AutoFacets team as well. We are very much thankful to all of you to take the time out for this first episode of our webinar series. As the topic suggests, in this episode, during next 30-40 minutes, we are going to talk about rapid evolvement in aftermarket of automotive digital journey. We will also cover automotive sales segment as well. As we all know, automotive industry has always been a front runner when it comes to digital transformation. And with the digital transformation, we don't only mean the manufacturing, but also the complete consumer journey as well, which has been proven time and again the requirement of being digitally. The recent health crisis has also made us compulsory that the entire customer journey has to go through digital transformation. So now I will have Alf open the webinar, and we'll also be joined by two of our colleagues, Thijs and Jatin from our command center in Netherlands. So Alf, over to you. Good afternoon.
God ettermiddag. Det er en stor glede å være å åpne dette seminaret, altså det første av en serie webinarer om digital transformasjon i bilindustrien. Even if this is a Norwegian market-focused webinar, most or almost all is generic for European post-COVID-19 markets. And therefore, we are overwhelmed to see a large sign-up of participants from all over Europe and beyond. So we will, of course, therefore conduct this webinar in English. Do excuse some of the imperfects in my English. We like to think that the Norwegian market, to some extent, works as a future lab for the larger European markets. The webinar is trying to drill into the challenges and opportunities of the automotive industry now faces post-COVID-19. We will particularly focus on three areas. First, how will the automotive retail market change in the near future? I will revert to this in a minute. Secondly, where do we see a particular need of digitalization within the industry? Thijs will cover this later. And third, what role can AutoFacets particularly play as a niche digital partner? Jatin will drill into this. A core question is, will we soon see a return to the normal, or should we prepare for a new, more disappointing normal in the automotive industry? A recent global Kantar study have interviewed people in the TGI panels in the planning to buy a car soon segment, exploring whether these members of this particular segment before the pandemic are now shying away from the plan to buy or only postpone that plan. The core finding is great for the automotive industry. The members of the planning to buy a car segment have not changed their intention, but only postponed it. And car sales are already slowly picking up in the Norwegian market, with almost 10,000 vehicles sold compared to the last year's June 13,400 and March 12,000. The automotive industry is, as you all know, in the midst of a digital transformation to meet a dynamic market of steadily more digital savvy consumers. Some core takeaways from a recent European study with quite some staggering figures. 80% of all consumers do part of their customer journey leading into a transaction online. Only 20% are brick and mortar centric only. In general, we already see now that 20% are doing the complete customer journey and purchase online with no brick and mortar visits at all. And that was before the global pandemic. The shift from petrol to e-vehicles is growing with staggering figures, as you know. and most of the e-brands have taken the consumer a distinct digital step forward through app-centric communication and advanced user-friendly solutions. In Norway, in May this year, zero-emission cars reached staggering 43% of all car sales, and market is expected to grow further. Already in January, 28 new zero-emission cars was announced to arrive into our market. The latest now is that the aggressive priced Chinese BYD Tang will launch their Tesla Killer at the end of this year in Norway, and Norway then being the first dip into the broader European market. The intention and ambition of this webinar is to drill into and share a deeper understanding of what changes are particularly important and where we expect to see the fastest changes, and where companies' ability to take action or not to do so will have a particular impact on their competitive force. And we will try to cover how the increasing need to master a more complex customer follow-up at a lower, not higher cost base. At the end of this webinar, I will give a generous offer for all of you. Back to you, Divan.
Wow, those were some fascinating stats. Thanks for that, Alf. And the numbers that Alf showed, 80% of us are spending our time more and more online before we start our journey as a consumer, which means that unlike the traditional scenario where we walk into dealership or garage with our vehicle, talk to a mechanic or a dealership reception, handed over a paper-based job card, select what service we want to perform on our vehicle, and then at the end of the service, get an invoice, which is again a paper-based. Nowadays, this entire process of locating a dealership or garage to getting a job card done to getting an invoice before even the car has been put on for service is completely transformed digitally. And this not only process part of it, but systems, the architecture, everything is more and more digital transformation centric, where we have complete marketing efforts, the campaigns, the digital coupons, vouchers, 100% coming to our way digitally. To, in most of the cases, robotic automated process for the entire consumer journey. This has changed rapidly, specifically for the automotive industry. And that's what we, as part of Gateway Group, under our AutoFacets brand, strive to cater to for the last 2 decades. At this juncture, I would like to invite my colleague Jatin from our command center in Netherlands to tell us more about what we are busy doing in AutoFacets and how we are catering to this digital transformation. Welcome, Jatin. Over to you. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Divya. And greetings to everyone listening. I would like to take over this slide and talk about in few minutes that how this has been structured. As Divyang mentioned, this is AutoFacets ecosystem that we have developed over multiple years, listening and working very closely with automotive customers. As everyone did, we also started our journey working with large number of automotive players and various other industries as an IT cost center. And slowly and steadily, we have evolved ourselves to become their more and more strategic partners. And hence, we have tried to understood more of their domain and then become more consultative and services company. And that is how we have tried to structure all these subsegments into one dot all together and have consolidated in a form of this triangle. Today, as our focus and the target segment is around the manufacturing and sales side of customers. So I will touch base a little bit around that. But before that, all of these customers and our involvement have been around three key reasons or three key topics what we have understood from them. One is the digitization needs that each one of these subsegments have today. Second is data. Every one of this subsegment is trying to figure out that what is the best way to handle the data, where to keep it, and how to produce it for various of their use cases. And third is, in this world of digital disruptions and technology disruptions, what are the new growth engines and revenue channels that they should figure out? And we continuously work closely with our partners and understand that. So for instance, when we talk about OEMs, we know that OEMs today are very much interested in making sure that data and the connected car and the autonomous vehicle, shifting from their traditional productions to EV vehicles, etc., are the key drivers and key engines of their working today. And all the innovations are being driven through those kind of work that they do. And when we talk about importer groups or large dealer groups and distributors, they've been busy these days to make sure that they understand, they capture the customer throughout the life cycle so that they can manage their wallet share. Dealers, on the other hand, and the workshops and garages, they want to make sure that with this thin margins today, they can optimize, they can increase their productivity, they can use their utilization, they can ensure that their return on investment or their value on the invoices is being handled with care. Remarketing platform, which is a used car marketing or used car platforms, they have their own agendas today. They are trying to figure out what is the best price for their end customer. And with this open sources, so many players in the market, so many marketing initiatives happening, so many ecosystems are confusing. So their remarketing platforms need a specific dynamic pricing engine to arrive at a very right cost for them to be competitive. So this is an example that how we understand these ecosystems, the subsegments closely, and we define ourselves accordingly. We adjust, we become more flexible, and we will show you some of the examples today that how we are also becoming more and more flexible as the demands are changing in the market and what are the reasons behind it. I would not cover, but aftermarket and services is again a strong segment of automotive customers that we work with, and we will take all these topics in detail in the coming webinar episodes. And by this, I will hand it over to my colleague Thijs, who will explain in a little bit more broader form how the automotive trends are shaping, are we aligned with those, and why are we trying to come up with solutions that we are going to talk about in our next sections. Over to you, Thijs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jatin. Hello, everybody. Let me take you through the 5 key areas that will undergo rapid changes from the industry points of view. And let's start with the top one, which is the autonomous vehicles. We see how with the rise of the technology on board modern vehicles, ADAS systems, advanced driving aid systems, or even the autonomous driving capabilities will become standard in most of these vehicles. These so-called autonomous cars help drivers to drive more safely, or in case of an accident, to limit the damages. Although that the technology evolves fast, legislation is not ready to accept the full autonomous cars yet. Discussions on liabilities are still open for debate. And overall, we see that these autonomous cars will enter the markets and they will become more rapidly introduced. The technology is becoming more comprehensive, but it brings a tremendous impact on the special tools, procedures, and traditional training as it's required to do the services and repairs. Number 2 is the connected car. Every mid-class and high-end vehicle nowadays is connected, and the vehicle data has become in certain business models a big revenue driver. Every driven mile nowadays is information gathered for the use of data crunching or scrutinizing it in order to harvest resellable data or putting it into a machine learning platforms. With this also, the shout out for more privacy and security is increasing because even laws now are being prepared for the security and privacy of these data streams from telematics. With mobility as a service and private leasing as fast-growing ownership models, telematics will play a huge role in car sales and after-sales models. Another area is very interesting is contract manufacturing. We see throughout the increased globalization of vehicle production, many of the car manufacturers construct nowadays vehicle platforms, and they are applicable for regional markets. Expansion in other continents of the world would require a different supply chain. This in order to keep those production costs low. Contract manufacturing is actually where a car is being built, external producer, but it's still under the supervision of the car manufacturer itself. This increases the speed of production, and together with the platform standardizations, it's also increasing the speed of introduction of new models, which is of course great for a consumer, but it's adding more complexity in precise vehicle identifications, the part supply chains, and of course the support and maintenance networks. The fourth point is showing that the car industry is heavily investing in digitalization. And we all see that there's an enormous increase in the appification of processes. Good example, we used to stand in a queue in McDonald's waiting for a turn to order. Now when you enter a McDonald's, you'll see large touchscreens are there. Actually, you can create your order on that touchscreen and you pay by card. There's no interaction anymore with an employee. The touchscreens and the mobile apps actually overtook and optimized that customer experience. We see the same in the automotive market. Customer interaction is evolving from aiding to adding, and you see that customers, where they used to have a physical consult in order to make an appointment or request information, it has now been changed into facilitating these features and adding these possibilities in websites or apps in which the consumer can manage it himself in the convenience of his home, and very often through a mobile telephone. This application does bring new challenges for getting your dealer management systems and CRM systems interacting with these mobile platforms and channels. And a fifth growth in the automotive trends or industrial trends is, of course, the tsunami of EVs. Popularity of these, they have fast growing numbers every year. Brands like Tesla or the fast rise of the Korean and Chinese EVs, especially into the Norwegian market, it is surpassing the traditional brands. These new vehicles have different sales and after-sales channels, and without owning an extensive network, many of these brands almost deliver a complete online sales and service model. I will be coming back on this a bit later in the webinar. But let's dive a bit deeper in today's trending digital solutions. If we look at the four pillars, and especially into the Norwegian market, but it's for a lot of European countries the same, we see that today's markets are evolving fastly into a consumer-centric approach. We see that car sales have become more distant related. We see consumers orient themselves more and more online or within their social environment. The showroom is there, in fact, to confirm what they have researched before. And YouTube has become the #1 car sales channel. Interaction with consumers is not in the showroom anymore with a cup of coffee. Virtual showrooms have been created where augmentation and virtual reality experiences of car configurators are being introduced. And again, very often in the convenience of your own home through a mobile phone. The connected car is connecting vehicles with the service of the manufacturers. Notifications are not only in the dashboard of your car, also your preferred dealer is getting relevant information about the status of the car. And these features are integrated into the after-sales service channels. And they will become the main driver to get the car back in the workshop for service or repair again. And we see through the use of the robotic process automation, information of customers and cars is processed into different CRMs, into lead generation platforms, or into customer retention applications, absolutely leaving no chance unused to reconnect with the customer again. And with these interactions, we see that online vehicle trade-in platforms or car subscription models are rising in popularity. And these platforms actually have staggering visitor numbers. Especially now in these COVID times, you see that the interest for owning mobility is growing again. The fear of public transport is big. In the column and area of after sales, we know that support is an under-evaluated contact moment. and especially in the consumer's perspective. Maintenance and support, they are unnecessarily evil, but once they do need it, they actually need a fast and swift action. In many new marketing definitions, they call an existing customer actually a new customer with an history. And of course, where onboarding processes should be fast and simple. Interactive platforms, apps to connect, they're all being connected with your DMS. It's a prerequisite for successful customer retention. And we see that the sophisticated CRM systems, and of course in the future, the connection of telematics, we actually can predict the maintenance of the vehicle. And this is connected to workshop planning system. It will be integrated into customer delight call centers, and it will all lead to an optimal conversion of the contact. In fact, you would be able to send the right triggers in time to re-engage with your customer prior to his service or his MOTs. These lead management systems, they will be driving the after-sales channels in the near futures. A fast and growing piece is fleet and lease. We see that private lease and long-term rental is really rising amongst consumers. They actually, with a low monthly fee, they're able to drive a brand new car. And important with these type of contracts is that the contract management is done properly. Maintenance as an insurance is embedded into the calculation, and that is an increased risk for the lessor. Also on the lessee side, for example, if your contract changes, like you've done more mileage or you want to have a shorter contracts, payments and the risks needs to be compensated and mitigated. And with these new ownership models, new ways of cost mitigation will be introduced. Pay-as-you-drive insurances, telematics for vehicle monitoring, apps are needed for the drivers for updating their contract status. We need residual value trackers. We need a cost of ownership, the predictive models. You know, these increased fleet sizes actually need platforms that are really capable of handling a lot of data and a lot of customer interactions. And we see that many of these new cars are actually hybrids or EVs. I think Alf already mentioned in Norway, they have the highest amount of EVs in the world. And not only require these vehicles a different type of maintenance and repair, the whole sales and after-service models are different. There are a lot of new players entering these markets, like the Teslas and the Chinese manufacturers. They don't have the established networks of dealerships, but they still sell in huge numbers to customers directly. Their customer journey is not based on the traditional way of engagement. They have successfully transformed the customer experience. They've made car buying easy. They interact with the consumers throughout the apps about, for example, upgrading options in the car or making appointments where they send out a mechanic towards the customer for a repair. And the interaction with their customer is all about short, fast, and easy. They do interact with a difference. Many of these new EVs are, by the way, very, very suitable for mobility as a service platforms, which is the rising model within the leasing industry. It means not paying for a fixed asset, but actually you're buying for mobility, where either the cars are being shared amongst a swarm of people, or as a sort of rental style where the consumer actually can change the vehicle during the contract, depending on his needs or the possibilities that the contract gives. Although it gives the customer a lot of freedom, it's an expensive and very often fast and abandoned model because it's completely customer-centric driven. And this is a high risk for fleet owners. We do see with the fear of COVID using the public transport, it got really a major boost in the last months in registrations. So the changes in these four segments are in very some cases, there are huge digital transformations where people, process, and products all undergo a transition in their current proposition. But many of the processes are, in fact, simple refinements of existing flows. So let's take a look at today's customer journey for scheduling a service of your car. We see that is a quite traditional way. So when your car is due for service, you actually search a garage. Very often you go to the garage that you already know or which is in your neighborhood. You make an appointment, you go there and you talk to the service advisor about the needed services or the repairs to be done. They give you a rough estimation of price, and after you agree on it, you hand over the key, and during the day the repair will start. If something occurs during that repair, for example, brakes have been worn out, you need new brake pads, most likely the service advisor will call you, explain to you the situation, and then you agree on it, whether you had a rough price indication or not. During the day, you start wondering if your car ready again, and you start calling to the garage and ask, is my car ready for pickup because I need it by the end of the day. And when everything is okay, you go to that garage, you get the invoice, you pay, and they hand over the key. This is actually the way it goes in many of the workshop, but it's changing a lot. We see that if we look at this evolvement of this customer journey, we see that the interactions are getting less and less, and it becomes more a seamless, but also very often a customer-centric journey. And that requires new ways of communication. So if you look at the flow of the new, we see that the customer journey is not about going to the garage, making appointments, and talking to the service advisor. It's actually utilizing the new digital platforms and the new ways of interaction. Within AutoFacets, we have some zero-touch developments. And Jatin, could you tell us more about these contact initiatives that we have developed?
Sure, Thijs. Yeah, thank you for these insightful trends. And we are certain that this is where the automotive industry is heading to. And hence, we are being very picky in what digital transformations that we are coming up with our customers. Now, when we pick up this use case or a process where we are talking about how the process for servicing a car for an end customer has evolved over the period of time, we and our customers were busy making this digital transformation before COVID, and it was one of the key areas in aftermarket and after sales segment, which was undergoing a huge transformation. That a customer can do online booking of the service where they get all the quotes, etc., and the process flows seamlessly, and they don't have to interact with any other rather than just dropping their car and picking up. Now, during this health crisis, as we all say that who's been your chief digital officer during these times? It's been COVID, and this has given rise to many of the contactless initiatives or a zero-touch initiatives. Now we are going to touch base on one of the use case today, and we'll see that why are these use cases going to be very important, and why we should develop it without reinventing the wheel. So if we go to our next slide and talk about a zero touch contactless digital service, is all about creating a digital transformation on a digital transformation where we are talking about creating an end-to-end journey without customer being coming into touch with a dealership or an employee of the dealership. And this way the customer is also confident of doing business, and also the employees at the dealership and workshops are confident about their health and safety. Now there are two ways to do it. Either you do it right from scratch, and you spend almost a year developing this, and we all know that, and we want that this COVID situation or this health crisis should not be the normal. It is just a temporary normal for which we are preparing. Hence, what we are trying to say in AutoFacets is we have already developed many solutions and applications around a digital transformation in this kind of a process, right from online booking, where a customer can select even the rental car, even their particular appointment slots, etc., on what day they want to go and hand over their car, to a digital check-in, which will notify their arrival at the workshop so that they have been handed very well within less amount of time, and so on and so forth. The digital service reception, which will talk about the call center history and other aspects that a workshop needs to manage. And then there is a service tracker, which gives customer the full flexibility to look into where their car is, how much time it has been taking to get serviced, and they can reach the workshop on time when the car and every maintenance and the service is done. Digital payment and customer survey are the rest of the examples that we are talking about. Now, to complete a contactless digital service, we may not want the detailed features, but we want to make sure that some of these features are leveraged from these solutions and the data is being handed over from one process to another in a seamless manner that it becomes a contactless service. So this is how we are also proving that we are not only the IT company, but we are automotive IT company who is consulting the right customer experience and a customer journey for our end customer. So this is an example of one of the use cases where we are certain through the demands and the push and the pull in the market today, alongside with our own research, that this is going to be useful. There are definite work in progress on many of these contactless transactions, which we will talk in our newer and more webinars that we are going to conduct. But this has come out through our understanding of various of the stakeholders in the ecosystem. As you will see on the next slide, we've been we've been working with all these DMSs, CRM, uh, original equipment systems, importer systems, and various brands where we are seeing that this kind of a contactless transactions are going to be eminent force in this coming times, because they want to make sure that the business impact is minimal while the customers and the employees are apprehensive about their working conditions. The businesses needs to get back to normal, and on this I would certainly say that this is one of the example that is mature example that has been delivered from our side, but there are more cases for us to interact, develop, talk. So we are ready for your questions and feedback on this. On this note, I will hand it over to Alf and take it to the next phases of this communications.
Thank you, Jatin. I hope that we have been able to convey that the digital transformation of the automotive industry needs to increase in speed after the pandemic, because the combined effect of the pandemic as such and the impressing and distinct digital leap or nudge forward the OEMs of the vehicle segment, now overtaking half of the market, creating a new consumer expectation and demand. The Norwegian automotive industry are front runners in digital transformation, but even here much is still undone. In later webinars, we will report to you how this transformation is developing cautiously and share with you the most interesting stories of transformation. There are three logical and interconnected key takeaways from our studies through close dialogue with our customers in the automotive industry in Norway and across Europe. First, we see a strong need to modernize the retail experience. Secondly, we see a particularly increased need to digitization of dealership. And finally, as you saw from the last presentation, last part, we see in the longer perspective a challenging need to establish a more sophisticated, personal, and effective contactless experience for the consumer, both in retail and in the aftermarket. And there are now available solutions to meet these needs, and that's a new and exciting part. It's getting more and more risky to postpone initiatives to speed up digital transformation because of customer expectations are rising to be served more personal, more efficient, and smarter through digital channels and apps. I did promise you in the beginning of this webinar a generous offer. We in Gateway and AutoFacets have consulting capacity available and can offer all participants in this webinar a 2-day workshop to drill into the challenges and opportunities the companies in the automotive industry now faces. Do not hesitate to contact me or anyone in the Gateway and AutoFacets teams, and we will set up consulting teams to deliver such workshops. We are a global player and deliver services all across Europe and beyond. Do send us also questions and comments to this webinar. We promise to answer all of them and will use them as inspiration for upcoming seminars as well. See you again soon with fresh updates from the Norwegian market in upcoming seminars, where we'll drill deeper into particularly interesting cases. Thank you all for joining this webinar this afternoon.
Thanks, Alf, for the generous offer. I'm sure many of the attendees have already started registering themselves for the workshop. And with that, we come to the end of this first episode of our webinar series. Thank you all for joining this episode. And I'm sure you will realize your 30-40 minutes have been well spent. And we'll see you on the other side of the summer vacation. Have happy holidays. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.